Welcome back. I was trying to not say welcome back because I realized I said welcome.
We always say welcome back. Hey guys! What are they always saying? Insta stories. Hey everybody! But honestly, I don't know anything about Marbury versus Madison. Like, I don't even know what it is.
Well, that's good. That
I
means
know
there'll
it's
be
a
lot
court
to learn.
case.
It is a court case.
But that's all I
yes.
know.
That's why Marbury versus Madison. That's where the versus comes in.
So
It'd be cool if it's a boxing match, though.
think of it like a boxing match, guys.
Yeah, except it's not. But yes, Marbury versus Madison. All right, ready?
Yes. Yeah, I'm ready.
Let's get going.
What is it?
The Supreme Court. First, we need to kind of give us a background on the Supreme Court because
What year are we dealing with? Like,
This
did the country
is-
just happen? What's happening?
Around the early 1800s. So this is after Jefferson. So Jefferson just became president.
Oh, okay.
Democratic Republicans have just taken over. Federalists are kind of falling apart. So that's what's going on. Just early 1800s, so 1802, 1803.
Okay.
And Supreme Court. Okay, so the Supreme Court was made in the Constitution, but people weren't exactly certain what the Supreme Court's job was. True story. They literally wrote it, and then they weren't too sure. They were like, "We'll figure this out down the line. Someone will pound in, tell us what
we need people.
we know we need something there, but we don't know what exactly it should look like." And they couldn't really agree on it either. So the Supreme Court is made, and people aren't exactly certain what it is. And the Chief Justice at this time is going to be a man named John Marshall. This is him right here. And he's going to be one of the most famous Supreme Court justices ever. And Supreme Court justice just means he's one of the 9 justices that sits there because there's 9 of them, and then they all vote, and that's how they make their decisions.
Yeah.
And they're there for life, so they can be there until they die or unless they do something.
Is it because they can't be like bribed or like, oh, well, if you do this, then you're not going to like get reelected?
Yes, and they're supposed to not be, they're not elected, so they're chosen by the president. But they're not supposed to be political, so it's supposed to be outside of politics part. They get paid.
Oh.
Yeah. So they're, Supreme Court justice. So people weren't sure what was going to happen, and we got at the top there, this Justice John Marshall. He's going to make some pretty important decisions. So first of all, let's talking about Marbury versus Madison. Let's give the background of the court case. So Marbury was appointed by Adams. So the president before Jefferson, after Washington, he realizes they're going to lose, that they're going out of office, and he's going to lose his job, and the Democratic Republicans are going to take over. So he decides, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stack the court cases. And he goes ahead and he throws in all the courts he can, and Marbury is one of them. So basically gives Marbury a court, and he says, you will be a judge of this court, and that way, so they get ready, but before Marbury can take his job and take his position, Jefferson becomes president. And when Jefferson becomes president, he's like, I'm not going to let Marbury have this job.
Why?
Because because Marbury's a Federalist, and he doesn't want a Federalist.
So there's 9 Supreme Judges. So basically, each party wants to have 5 of their own, kind of.
Yes, but Marbury wasn't a Supreme Court judge. He was a lower judge.
Oh, okay.
Of a lower court, yeah. So he was a judge of a different thing. So Marbury's like, nope, you can't have your job. Jefferson, nope. And because Madison's working for him, Madison kind of do it for him. So Madison does the dirty work. Madison says, I'm not going to let you have your job. And there's a bunch of judges that he does this to, not just Marbury. But Marbury's the one that sues. Because Marbury gets mad, and so he sues Madison, and he goes to the Supreme Court. He basically says to the Supreme Court, like, hey, I was given this job by Adams. I deserve this job. And Madison's like, well, you know what? I'm president. We're president. Jefferson's president now, and he doesn't want you to have this job, and you were never fully given this job, so we're going to stop and not give you this job, and that's our right. So that's the argument that's happening in the Supreme Court.
What do you think? Before you go into this, who do you think's right?
I think it's pretty sketchy what Adams did, just trying to throw in a bunch of people.
So you agree with Jefferson?
I think I do agree with Jefferson, just because it's a pretty sketchy what Adams is doing. Adams literally created more judgeships just so he could put his people in. So he's basically just trying to stack the deck as much as he can before he lost power. But yeah.
Huh. Okay.
Anyways, so that's the court case. So it goes to the Supreme Court, and John Marshall and the Supreme Court need to make a decision. And what they decide has a huge impact. First, it decides it wasn't its job to review these types of cases.
It wasn't his job?
So the Supreme Court says, yeah, we shouldn't be reviewing these type of cases. This isn't our job to review them. And the people are like, what? You can just imagine Marbury being like, okay, that's great. Why
Like,
did I
what
go
are you here for? Yeah.
What are you here for? But Supreme Court says, well, instead what we should be doing is that we should just be deciding if laws are constitutional or not. So when the Congress or someone tries to pass a law, it's going to come to us, and we're going to see if the Constitution says that that government can do that. So they're basically making sure the power of the government doesn't get too strong. There's checks and balances.
That's nice.
Yeah. So they decide this, and this is called the power of judicial review. So judicial review is when the Supreme Court can decide if laws are constitutional or not. And this gives the Supreme Court a lot more power, and it becomes now equal to Congress and the President. So it becomes the third branch of power.
So it wasn't necessarily meant to be the third branch, but then it just kind of ended, like they didn't.
Yes, because the way they've written into it, they like wrote about it, but they weren't exactly too certain about it. But it kind of gives itself the powers.
But it's a good thing that it's the third branch.
Yes, it really balances things out because of John Marshall's Supreme Court. So that's why this court case is so important. It's not so important because of the
Yeah, who won?
because of the Marbury versus Madison. Well, neither of them really. They both kind of just
Wait,
tied.
none of them? So,
Yeah.
did he end up being a judge?
He ended up getting a judge, yeah, but it was because they kind of also said in the court case, yeah, you technically should get this judgeship, but it's also not our job to decide. So they kind of like
They were like, you should. So
they didn't really rule on it.
So
really.
then Madison kind of just gave in.
Yeah, a little bit. Madison didn't really get Anyways, Anyways, but that's as I was saying that
We just learned about this court case and neither of them won.
Yeah, that's why. But the cool part about it isn't that the court case. It's the awesome part that the Supreme Court basically gave itself some powers, which is why it's so important. Because we'll see for the rest of U.S. history, Supreme Court does a lot of things. It decides about the court cases on racism, court cases on segregation.
So
Huge amount of things.
basically, in that moment, what was his name again? Marshall? Could
John
have
Marshall.
made the Supreme Court even more powerful. Like, he could have been bad with it.
I mean, he potentially could have given himself even more power, but he said just give himself judicial review.
Oh,
So that's why it's so important. Yeah. So that's Marbury versus Madison. Do you want to give us our tea?
Yes, even though you kind of took my tea.
Oh, I'm sorry, I took your tea.
Here's my green tea, my green iced tea with lemon. I do drink other things, but again, I made a big picture of this. So this is what I've been drinking. Anyhow, my tea was that when I was reading this, I try not to read too much because I want to learn from you, not from the internet. But I read that John Adams, when he realized he was going to lose, he, like you said, stacked the deck against. So that's literally like if the president, like there was just an election here, but it was 2 days before he left office.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and there was one they called the midnight midnight.
Yeah, where they just added tons of
Yes,
judges.
and it happened at midnight, like the day before. It was so
midnight appointments, something like that. No,
yeah, midnight.
I'm actually curious because I remember it. Midnight appointees.
Yes, midnight appointees. Yes, and so it happened. Yeah. Anyway, midnight appointees, but I feel like that is so shady. Like, honestly, John, well, but is it shady? Like, wouldn't you do that? It's like you have one last bit of power, so you're like, of course I want my people to be in power. So then they just go boom, boom. And I don't know. I feel like because you said you agree with Madison more, but John Adams was given this thing. He was able to do it. So when do you say you're not allowed to? I mean, he was given a date and he did it by the deadline. So I actually feel like it was constitutional.
Okay, that's
He
a good
did
point.
it. But they also, it is kind of sketchy because presidents can, what's it called when you let people out of jail?
Pardon.
They can pardon people, and like presidents pardon a lot of people. And I don't know. So I guess that'd be bad if like you were about to leave.
Really thought you were going somewhere with that
No.
Adams had pardoned someone, but nope, just a random fact.
But it would be, but it's kind of the same thing. Like if Adams is just like, oh, I'm gonna pardon all these gangsters, and be cool with the gangsters. I don't know.
Okay.
Be bribed.
Well, that's the tea.
And that's the tea. We hope you guys have such a great rest of your virtual day.
It's still a real day, even though it's online.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Bye.